Morning, Jeff. 9:05 on Friday, the 15th of May. Coming up later in this hour, a truly heartbreaking story. The nation's longest-serving poppy seller jumped to her death after being hounded by dozens of charities begging for her money. We'll tell you the story of the plight of that 92-year-old woman, plus an appreciation of the career of Liverpool star Steven Gerrard as he gets ready to step out for the last time for Liverpool at home at Anfield in a Premier game. He'll never walk alone. Anfield prepares to say farewell. But to start the hour, well, perhaps you had a love affair with a great political party. The times were great. It was a relationship that went far. You shared power, you tasted victory, you travelled around the world, and then the relationship came to an end. There was something called a general election last week, and all of the dreams were shattered. And you're a Labour supporter, and you're sitting there, or driving there, or even standing there thinking, what happened to our great party? Well, you can tell Tessa. Yes, Labour dame Tessa Jowell is here for counselling to dispense advice and wisdom by the bucket load. And I should, of course, remind you, if you're listening in London, she's also running to be the London Mayor. Dame Tessa Jowell, I know I can call you Tessa because I've known you for a couple of years now. Welcome to the studio. People will be ringing in seeking solace. The wound's still raw?
Yes, but you've got to pick yourself up and move on, but take very seriously what people in London have said to us, and indeed people across the country. And
well, in London, actually, you went up by about 3.4%, the Labour vote, didn't you?
We did well in London, but we certainly did well in London, but we didn't do well enough.
No.
And so there are no grounds for triumphalism, but
certainly no grounds for triumph. Oh, I see what you mean in London. I see what you mean. Yeah.
No, but
yeah.
We've now got seven new Labour MPs in London, and they are all fantastic. And we had a brilliant campaign in London. I mean, we had 10,000 activists, not all party members, and party supporters who wanted to get involved with Labour. And I think that in that lies the basis of the strength and possibility of our recovery.
All right. You're here to take calls to talk about Labour nationally, or, of course, to talk about Labour in London, where, as Dame Tessa rightly points out, they did actually have an uptick in support and possibly even running as mayor. First call, Andrew in Chelsea. You're through to Tessa Jowell. Go ahead, Andrew.
Good morning, Tessa.
Good morning, Andrew.
What is going to happen about the fire sale of social properties in London? We've lost about 11,000 properties in London. Housing associations are knocking down beautiful Victorian developments and replacing them with luxury flats which are being sold off overseas, some of them two-thirds empty for most of the time. And the Labour Party is doing nothing in London to stop it. And we've seen in Southwark even them building developments and contributing to the social cleansing of London.
Well, I agree with you, Andrew. I think that this is a huge problem. There are all sorts of, kind of backdoor perverse incentives that have been given to developers. One I got onto just before the election, which was essentially that if developers took over an empty property, they were not bound to create affordable housing. So what was happening was that tenants were being moved out, the building taken over empty without the responsibility to provide affordable housing. I got onto that. We had a very well supported online petition, and on the last day before Parliament was dissolved for the election, the minister changed the rules. But there's no one answer to this. There's one, that you have to go through all the building regulations and take out everything that is an incentive to that kind of bad behaviour. But I think also that on new social housing we have to end discounted right to buy. The fact is that the replacement rate for homes which are sold is that one social home is built for every 23 that were sold. So is it any wonder that there's a housing crisis in London?
Andrew,
and it affects us all.
Andrew, a quick response to you. Yeah.
Yes, quickly. Come down to Chelsea. We've got an estate, a Victorian estate, the Sutton estate, which Affinity Sutton are going to sell off over 50% of it for private housing. They're going to make a profit in excess of £150 million on this. and nobody seems to care.
Andrew, I would love to come down to hear more, talk to the tenants and residents affected. So there's a date. We just need to decide exactly when.
All right, Andrew, stay on the line. One of my team will take your details, and then we'll pass on your contact details to one of Tessa's team, and we will follow up. But I know Tessa of old. If she says she's going to do something, it will happen. You've got my word. Andrew, talk to one of the team. Thank you. Jason in Mayfair, you're through to Tessa Jowell. Go ahead, Jason.
Hi, Nick. Hi, Tessa.
Hi, Jason.
I've supported the Labour Party all my life. I was so disappointed during the election. But it seems to me, since Blair and including Blair, when some bench spokespersons for the Labour Party talking in the media, they talk like intellectual academic Marxists. Why don't you talk in terms of things like renationalising the railways? No one would object to that. Or bringing back the energy companies into public ownership. No one would object to that. You know, you miss the boat. It's almost as if you are frightened to really talk about social issues that affect everybody. You're frightened to show that you are Labour. It's not about being anti-aspirational. It's about actually saying there are certain elements of society which should be in the public domain.
Stay on the line, Jason. Let's hear from Tessa.
Well, Jason, I agree with half of that, and I disagree with the other half. What I agree with is the sort of founding Labour principle that we achieve more together than we do alone, and therefore building community, building a sense of common purpose, the success of many mutual businesses. All these are a practical expression of Labour principles. And in fact, in our manifesto, we did have commitments to part renationalisation of the railways and action to cap the prices of energy companies. But you see, I think there are two things here. One is that it's important that people can see in a political party that their ambitions can be realised, that there isn't a sense of an attack on doing well, being able to provide for your children. There's not a kind of implied criticism of success. And I think some people took that from our campaign. We focused very heavily on the people who were most vulnerable, on zero-hours contracts and so forth. And it's right that the Labour Party and the trade union movement stands up for those people. But the important thing is, Jason, can I just say this? I'm sorry if I'm going on a bit.
Jason.
But, we live in a very fast-changing, globalised city, and we've got to be able to respond to all those changes. Some of the old solutions work, some of them don't.
Jason, you're on in a second, but you say that there was the Labour campaign. Come on, there was going to be a mansion tax. There were going to be tax increases. Of course it was seen as a bit of a fight on people who do well or who are aspirational, Tessa. How else could you characterise that?
Well, I think it was seen by that like that.
So the mansion tax was a
people.
bad idea, wasn't it?
Well, I think it's fair that people who live in very valuable properties.
Define very valuable.
Well, worth millions of pounds. 3 million, 4 million, 5 million.
OK, so Ed Miliband just comes in under there.
Well, let me... who live in very valuable properties should pay more council tax than people who live in a property that's worth £500,000 or £600,000.
Yes.
That is
But a mansion
fair.
tax as such...
The problem with the mansion tax is, first of all, we're not talking in London about mansions.
No.
We're talking, in many cases, about 3-bedroomed terraced houses.
Yes.
Point one. The second is that if you're going to announce something like a mansion tax, in inverted commas, you've got to explain it very carefully. My great concern, and it goes to Jason's point, is that many people who owned houses worth £800,000 or £900,000, which is quite easy in London, actually felt that they were going to be liable for the mansion tax. They never were,
So it was poor delivery
but they thought
by Labour,
they would.
wasn't it?
Well, I don't think we explained it properly.
Yeah. Jason, you wanted to get back to Tessa Jowell. Jason.
I did. Tessa, that wasn't my point. My point is, why are you, as a party, shy to talk about, things such as nationalisation?
Well, no, Tessa did say that was in the manifesto, Jason.
Yeah, but they didn't make a public thing of it. I'm not anti-aspirational at all. I'm doing very
But let me just ask you this, Tessa, because I know you're asking for some coffee. Grab a bit of coffee while I just briefly speak with Jason. Jason, do you not think that the way the Labour played the NHS, which is a jewel in the crown in British life, it was a key concern, it does register very, very importantly on many people's lists, that they performed well on the NHS at least?
Well, yes, I do, in a way, but then they should have said, look, if there is any profit to be made in the NHS, any profit, it's not going out to private tenders. If there's profit to be made in the NHS, it will go back to the NHS. This nonsense of limiting profit to private tenders of 5% just shows that they are frightened to actually be secure and confident in their political aspirations as well as...
All right, OK, I will leave that. Then, Tessa Jowell, when Lord Mandelson says that the party lost its way in the last election campaign, how accurate is that?
I don't think the party lost its way. I think that, Ed Miliband, I said this to lots of people, Nick, Ed had a very clear view of what was wrong with the country, what he thought was wrong with the country, and how he wanted to fix it. I think it wasn't that we lost its way, we lost our way. It's that the country didn't want to buy that diagnosis of what was wrong with the country and most of the solutions that we were recommending. And I think we've got to take that very seriously.
But the skill of your party under Tony Blair was that you went to the voter. Do you not feel with Ed Miliband, he expected the voter to come to you?
No, I wouldn't see it like that. I think that what is... And, you can't go back.
No. But you must learn from history.
Yeah, exactly. You've got to keep on moving forward. I think you have to stay in the centre ground and you have to build a broad coalition of support, and people have to feel inspired and safe if they're going to support you.
Let's get to some more of your calls. Alex is in Hendon. You're through to Tessa Jowell. Alex.
Hello, Nick. Morning.
Hello.
Good morning, Alex.
Morning, Tessa.
How is it up in Hendon today?
Wet.
Well, very sad. Labour didn't win here. They had 42. It was one of the most marginal that they should have won. The mansion tax probably didn't play very well, I don't think, and because it was badly thought out. It was an emotive policy. What you should have been talking about is just reviewing council tax. See how simple that sounds? But Labour, their biggest problem for me, as somebody who's, at times wanting to be an activist, and I played a role, I was on the bus with Justine Miliband during the campaign. Basically, you're not listening to your grassroots, really. I phoned your campaign office months before the election to warn you of your impending defeat, which I had seen by listening to LBC and listening to those callers that were coming through to the station. And I just don't think you were picking up on these things.
So who was it you called, Alex? Not because Tessa, of course, won in Dulwich. So who are you talking about?
I called their campaign office.
I see, Labour campaign. I'm sorry.
HQ, yeah. And I gave them some pointers. One of the things is there were too many free hits for the Tories. Just free hits on the fact that you guys, the myth in the public is that Labour's responsible for the recession, and that myth took hold in 2010. You've never been able to convince people otherwise of that myth, and it's just been circulating around there all over Twitter, and that's why you're losing, because you didn't capture it. And I don't think you should actually move very much from where you are politically for this next campaign, because I think you'll find people will come to you. For some people, things are not bad enough yet.
All right, let's get some of Tessa Jowell's views in on that.
Well, I just wanted to say, Alex, thank you very much. And I saw Andrew Dismore, who was the Labour candidate that you'd have been working for last night, who is, a great local activist. And, he's he's resilient. He obviously accepts that, he didn't win. But thank you very much for supporting him. What you say about the mansion tax, I think, is right. I think, it's very hard to launch policies that have a direct personal impact on people during a campaign, because people worry. And I spent a lot of time on doorsteps, particularly in North London, explaining to people that they wouldn't be liable for the mansion tax. But when people go to the ballot paper or go to the ballot box, they do worry. And why should they believe one conversation with me? So they vote for caution, when in fact actually the mansion tax is limited in its impact. But of course it's 80% of the properties affected are in London. So, but you are absolutely right, Alex. Always listen to your grassroots. And I think
LBC.
that it's very easy in an election campaign for people who are leading the campaign to become disconnected.
Is that what happened to Ed Miliband, Tessa?
Well, I don't think so. I don't think he...
Oh, that Ed Stone. What the hell is that about? You can laugh now.
I know, I'm laughing now. That's a low hit, Nick.
That was shocking.
It's in a garage somewhere in South London. But anyway,
Whereabouts in South
of course, I've no idea. I don't think it's in my former constituency. But anyway, that was obviously, but we all bear responsibility.
Were you involved in that? Did you know that?
No, I had nothing to...
How much did it cost?
Apparently £30,000.
And can you scrap it? Has it got any scrap value?
I'm sure, yeah. I think it's nice sandstone. I think you just have to take all the writing off, and then it can become a piece of street. It could become a piece of street furniture. In fact, we could ask all your listeners, what do they think should be done with the Edstone? Where would they like it? So perhaps we could have LBC listeners putting their pledges on it. But I think where I think Alex is absolutely right is that you've got to go on listening to the grassroots. And actually, I think if you're leading a party, you always want to be on the doorstep, because that's where you get unmediated conversation with people.
You are, and you won't be offended when I say this, Tessa, you're a Labour veteran. You've served in cabinet. You've served under...
I went from being a rising star to being a veteran, and I'm not sure what happened in between.
You have blossomed. You have blossomed, and your career has strengthened. You've been cabinet minister. You've held all sorts of important briefs. You thrived under the Blair and Brown years. How does the party heal its internal wounds now? You've seen a bit of infighting in the past.
Well, I think one of Ed Miliband's achievements was to keep the party together. I think it was quite remarkable. But you've got to be, I think the lesson for the next stage is that you've got to be united around a really common cause, not people, in a way, just uniting for the sake of unity.
So who's the best man or woman to do that?
You mean you're asking my view on the leadership contest? I'm going to sit that one out. Because I think it's very early. I want to see how they all perform, and I hope that your listeners are going to...
But who might the Conservatives fear most?
Who might the Conservatives fear most? I think, again, it's too early to say. In another 2 or 3 months...
Andy Burnham's a smooth operator, isn't
he? He worked for me. He is truly lovely man, Andy. Very grounded. But, I think that they're all talented.
Good-looking, health, brief.
Absolutely.
I mean, it ticks all Labour's
lovely
boxes,
family,
yeah.
all those. I mean, he is a really lovely man. But I'm not going to say support any of them at the moment. I think people have got to have a chance to make up their mind and see them perform. And they're not all, I don't think they're all out yet. Tristram Hunt last night put on a very strong performance on Question Time. So let's see if he's going to throw his hat in the ring.
Pauline's in Watford. She's thrown her hat in the ring to ask you a question, Tessa. Pauline, go ahead.
Good morning.
Hello, Pauline.
Good morning. What can Labour do in opposition about the creeping privatisation of the NHS? I've sent you some email evidence. But particularly, shall we say, I think that advertising or negative advertising probably played a significant part in Labour's loss. Because if you repeat like a mantra ongoingly, Ed Miliband, the backstabber, his father was XYZ. If you repeat repeatedly, Labour crashed the economy. I think that the brainwashing effect is quite good. That's why people pay millions for advertising.
Yes, we didn't have as many millions to spend on advertising as particularly the Tories did, Pauline, and that was probably set us at a disadvantage. But we did have thousands and thousands of people out on the doorsteps, not just in London, in Watford, across the country, and that is, that's a very effective way of engaging with people.
How would you have spent the extra money? Had you had the sort of money that the Conservatives had, on what would you have spent it?
I think I would have spent even more on our local organisation, and I'd have spent it.
But you had more troops on the
Yes,
field than any other party.
But I think that
the truth is your message didn't work.
Well, our message in the end, clearly, our message didn't work. But because
you had a left-wing Marxist at the helm of the party.
No. In building the party,
if you'd
from
had
the
David,
grassroots,
you'd have won, wouldn't you?
You've got to, look. Listen, it's over. We lost the election.
You and me?
No.
Oh. Don't tell me like that, for God's sake.
Never.
If you'd had David Miliband, it would have been a different story.
We've now got to move forward. And the Labour Party is very good at looking back, wishing things were different, all the rest of it. But there's a lot of energy out there, particularly in London, to move forward and, to build the kind of party, again, which captures people's ambition and people feel safe to support.
Pam's in Lambeth. Go ahead, Lambeth, Pam.
Hello, good morning.
Hello.
Hello, Pam.
Hello. I'd like to ask you a question, please, Tessa. It's confusing in Lambeth. I just heard you praise Andrew Dismore, who stood for one of the North London boroughs. He has been a very, very strong advocate against regeneration and supporting council tenants in that area. I live in Lambeth, where I live on Cressingham Gardens, actually, where we have no support from the Labour Party in our fight for our rights in the face of regeneration. Why is there such a huge disconnect between North London, South London? Why there doesn't seem to be a Labour policy?
Well, I think the point is that both are important. Regeneration is important, Pam. We've been talking already just in the last half hour about London's desperate need for new and decent homes for people. But where people are displaced, and I went to a regeneration area in Haringey the other way, where people are displaced, what's important is that care is taken to make sure that they are as satisfied with the alternative for them as is possible. You can't pretend that regeneration involves no disruption for people, but you've got to pay a lot of attention to the people who are disrupted and understand, their anxieties about losing their home, moving their home. And so I think you have to be able to do those two things.
All right, a couple of emails coming in. Teresa in Hornchurch. How patronising was the pink bus?
I don't think I went out on the pink bus, and I went to Enfield North, met about 26 formers, all of whom were registered to vote, feisty, interested,
How
engaged.
How patronising was a pink bus for the ladies' vote?
Listen, we all talked about it. Isn't that the good thing in politics?
All right, Teresa's second point. Why did Labour MPs attend a public meeting with a segregated audience? This was up in Birmingham, where there was a meeting arranged by a local, I think it was a Muslim Labour councillor, and the men sat on one side of the room and the women sat on the other. How wise is it of Labour to attend that?
Well, I wouldn't be at all. I don't think we should do that. I don't know enough about the circumstances.
If you went
of
to
that.
a meeting, a hustings meeting, and you saw that it had been arranged by Faith, and they had women on one side and men on the other, what would you do?
I would. I think Nick, these things are much more sensitive than just saying you arrive there and say I'm not having this. I think it's the kind of thing you have to organise in advance. But I wouldn't be happy sitting in a segregated audience.
Roy's in Huddersfield. Go ahead, Roy.
Yeah, hello, good morning, Tessa.
Good morning, Roy.
I'm the son of a Labour councillor, county councillor, magistrate, football referee to boot, chairman of the schools management, etc., and had to grin and bear him talking to me in assembly and all the others with great embarrassment.
How embarrassing was that, Roy? Eh?
When I married and moved to the first house, I became a member of the local Labour Party, and I helped out at the '79 election which went to Margaret Thatcher, of course. Then we went all those years, and in 97, stayed up all night, May the 1st, wonderful. And then Gordon Brown's very first budget, and I remember it well.
I'm going to have to move you to the question, I'm afraid, Roy, because we've only got about a minute left. What's
I'm on tenterhooks here,
yeah,
Roy.
I know. You and me both.
Why is Labour not atoned for its sins in destroying private sector final salary schemes? They disappeared one by
Pensions.
one. And they've never apologised, and they've done...
This is the claim that it was Labour that destroyed the pension schemes, Roy. Is that it? Yeah.
Absolutely.
OK, so hold on the line, Roy. Thank you. And wonderful background, true Labour credentials. Tessa Jowell.
Well,
Another apology required. Why can't Labour say sorry?
Yeah, well, Roy, if you have been left disadvantaged by this, obviously, I regret that greatly. And, these are the kinds of things that where people feel aggrieved, it is important either to explain or to apologise.
And do you think enough apologies were made in the campaign by Labour? Because it is suggested that, rightly or wrongly, the electorate feels you needed to, particularly Mr Balls, Ed Balls, the former Shadow Chancellor, he needed to say sorry.
Well, the central question of the election in relation to the economy became the question, did we spend too much in government? And the fragility of the economy showed that we did spend too much in government. And in fact, I can remember, Nick, there was quite a debate, 2005, 2006, about having a further comprehensive spending review to review forward levels of spending. And Gordon, as the Chancellor then, was absolutely opposed to this, and of course his cooperation would have been essential. And I'm not blaming him, but I'm saying it wasn't something that passed without anybody thinking about it. And we were far too reliant on the financial and business sector, particular impact on London. And so when the tax revenues from those high earners in the financial sector stopped coming in, our economy was in great difficulty.
If in London, lastly, Tessa Jowell, where of course you will be standing as the Labour candidate, if in London more people are coming to Labour and indeed you had an increase in your vote, and across London more people voted for Labour, so if more people are joining Labour, that's going to help your rival colleague for the mayorship, Sadiq Khan, isn't it?
Well, I think it's good for Labour if more people join Labour and more people support Labour. We will shortly be...
But he might vacuum up all those new members, might he not?
Well, let's see. Let's see. This is a contest. And I have my case to make. He has his case to make. Diane Abbott has her case to make. David Lammy has his case to make. Christian Woolmer has his case to make. That's the point of a selection campaign. The Labour Party will choose...
And why have they put it off?
To bring it in line with the leadership and the deputy leadership election.
Wouldn't it have been better to get at it now?
There's a big saving in postage and, the cost of running two campaigns.
But it would be better to get at it now, wouldn't it?
Well, I would love to have got at it now. That is not a criticism. The Labour Party needs to do this in the most efficient and economical way. So that's why we're doing it like this. So we've got another 6 weeks to campaign.
Oh, indeed. Dame Tessa Jowell is, of course, the Labour MP for Dulwich and West Norwood. She's standing in the...
I was.
You were. I'm so sorry, you were. I'm so
Yes.
sorry. You're moving now to become the London mayoral candidate along with those other Labour people that we've just mentioned. There may be more. Can more still emerge, or has it finally closed?
Absolutely.
So there could be yet more people throw the proverbials in the ring.
Absolutely.
Former Cabinet Minister taking part in Tell Tessa and setting the mood of the city and the mood of the nation. Tessa, always good seeing you. Always smiling.
Lovely.
As ever. Tessa Jowell, thank you. Listen,